God, it's cold today. You don't normally see me with a jumper on. I don't like wearing jumpers. But today's that cold. I've actually seen a socialist with his hands in his own pockets. It was either that joke or I was going to do a joke about brass monkeys, but that one was a bit obvious. So, because it's that cold, let's talk about rough sleeping in Greater Manchester. In evening news today, we've got two stories, one from Salford, one from Bury. Both of them claiming that they're struggling with rough sleeping, which is surprising considering our Mayor Andy Burnham promised to eradicate rough sleeping in 3 years, and that was 7 years ago. So let's talk about Bury first of all. Bury is saying that their rough sleeping problem has risen 1,400% in the last 5 years. Let me say that again, 1,400% rise. Now, to be fair, they had a tiny problem anyway, so the numbers have increased by that percentage, but we're not talking about hundreds and hundreds. We're talking about single figures, which have now gone into double figures. But it's still extremely bad for Bury because they thought they didn't have a problem. And then let's talk about Salford. The Mayor of Salford has now declared a homelessness crisis. Oh, we have another crisis that can sit along next to the climate crisis and every other crisis we seem to have these days. Our country is in crisis, but it's got nothing to do with the climate. So what's he saying? Well, what's he done? Because we had rough sleepers camping outside his office, the town hall, they've decided to do something about it. So they've opened up an old school in Swinton, and now they're housing rough sleepers in there on camp beds. Now, how's it got this bad? Now, things have changed since I've been working on the streets. I've not worked on the streets now for a couple of years. There was hardly any foreign nationals on the streets 5 years ago. That seems to be the problem now. The overwhelming problem are foreign nationals who are not entitled to public funds. So they become destitute, they end up on the streets, and then the councils have to end up picking up that bill if they do anything about it. But most of the time councils go, we're not interested. We don't have to do it, so we're not doing it. So we'll let these people sleep on the streets. Now, I don't want these individuals in the country anyway, but if they're in the country, they shouldn't be living on the streets. That's just how I feel about this. It's a home office problem, but I don't want people living and dying on the streets. We're a 21st century civilized country. We don't allow anyone to live on the streets, but we do in this country. So let's talk about Salford. Let me give you a story about Salford. They were incompetent before we had this migration problem, and they'll be incompetent after this migration problem is ever solved. My team was working with a rough sleeper once in Salford about 5-6 years ago. We stumbled across this guy living in a tent in this wooded area behind a billboard because he wanted to keep out of the way. Didn't want to go to the city centre because it was too dangerous. He was one of these vulnerable individuals who hid away and didn't want people to know he was a rough sleeper because it's dangerous out there. We bumped into him where his tent was. We had a chat with him and we said, let's try to get you accommodation. And he said, Nick, I've been here before. I have people like you coming along all the time over the last 10 years telling me they can help me, and none of them can ever help me. And we took that as a challenge because we hear that as an excuse all the time. And we said, right, tell us your story and we will definitely help you. So he told us this story, no real drug and alcohol issues. And he was almost 55. And we said, fantastic. We can get you some over 55 accommodation. And at that point, there was always vacancies in over 55 accommodation. So we took him to Salford Council. We queued up for hours, we sat down with him, and eventually he was in front of an officer. Asked him some questions, name, got to date of birth. Yeah, date of birth. You're not 55 yet. Yeah, we know that. He's 55 in 3 weeks' time. 3 weeks, he'll be 55. Can you take his application now? And if you can't give him something now because he's not 55, which would be stupid, but we know what the council's like, and if that goes against your rules, process his application and we'll come back on his birthday. And the answer was, no, we can't take his application till he's 55. We went, he's living on the streets. Can't you just take his application? Don't give him anything until he's 55, but take his application. The answer was no, doesn't work like that. So we said, well, can we see supervisor? He said, yeah, not a problem. Supervisor manager came out and said, yep, no, he's correct. We will not take this application until he's 55. Come back when he's 55. And we're like, this is astounding. This is not just incompetence. This is now not caring about individuals. We're not asking you to break the rules. We're not asking you to give him something he's not entitled to. He'll wait 3 weeks living on the streets, if that's the rules, but not taking his application. So there's nothing we could do. So we took him back to his tent and said, right, we'll call in on you every week for the next 3 weeks. And then the day of your birthday, we'll go back and we'll get this sorted. A week later, we went to visit him, gone. Tent gone, everything gone. And I was like, I don't blame him. We couldn't help him. We couldn't beat the council system of incompetence. It beat us again. It's always beating us. Every now and again we fluke a win against the council. But that was Salford Council, so we put a complaint in to Salford Council, the head of service, and to the head councillor in charge of homelessness. And we said to him, this isn't a complaint, but we want to let you know where you're failing, and this is our experience. And guess what the reply said? What reply? Didn't even get a reply. So a homeless charity raising concerns to Salford Council couldn't even get a reply. And then a year later at Salford University, I was giving a lecture at a conference on homelessness. So I talk about that story, and in the audience is the Mayor of Salford Council, Paul Dennant. And Paul sticks his hand up and goes, you know what, that I don't know anything about that. I'm going to take that away and I'm going to get you an answer for that. Yeah. I've not changed address since. That was 6 years ago. Never heard back off Paul, the Mayor of Salford Council. And to be fair, I didn't expect to, because he knows he runs an incompetent council. And it was incompetent before he turned up. I'm not blaming him per se. I'm just blaming him for never fixing Salford Council. So rough sleeping's changed. Rough sleeping now isn't just a white working class drug addict male problem, and that's what it used to be for many decades. We now have women now rough sleeping. Equality, yeah, you go girl power. And now mostly it's foreign nationals who are sleeping rough on the streets. How have we got to such a mess? If I become mayor of Greater Manchester next year, I've got a plan all waiting to be initiated for Greater Manchester. If you go on my social media, in the highlights or the pin section, you'll find my plan in detail there, what I intend to do. And part of that is we need to take the Home Office to court. And that's what I'll be doing as mayor. I'll be taking the Home Office to court saying, why have we got foreign nationals in Greater Manchester who have no recourse to public funds, who are destitute, that you allowed into the country, that you allow to stay in the country, who are not working, who are a drain on public services and public money and taxpayers' money, who contribute nothing to the country. Why do you allow them to stay here? And I'll take them to court, the Home Office, and I might not win, but I'll embarrass them and I'll highlight this problem to everyone who lives in the country. Because that's how we need to start fixing some of our problems. We need to start embarrassing the people at the top because they don't care or they're too incompetent. But let's shine a light on these people, these politicians, these civil servants at the top, and say, you're failing. This isn't good enough. National shame. Embarrass them. It works. Honestly, it works. Let's give them some skin in the game. Let's make them care about these issues. Because at the moment, they don't care. They're sat in their office going, nothing we can do about that. And you know what? It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my wage. It doesn't affect my pension. It doesn't affect my career. I really don't care. I want to flip the tables. I want it to affect your career. I want it to affect your job and your wage and your pension for when you lose your job, because the public demand better, and the public demands no one sleeping on the streets in the UK, and also demanding no foreign nationals sleeping on the streets of the UK. We deport them automatically. That's what we used to do 20 years ago. If you was a foreign national destitute in the UK, you would be deported. You'd be sent home. Don't do that anymore now. Human rights. It's not fair. Things will change in Greater Manchester if I'm elected next year. That's not even next year, in May. 4 months from now. So if you live in Greater Manchester and you want change, and you want to see a fight, and you want to see a scrap, and you want to see someone embarrass the politicians, the top officials, the civil servants, I'm the man for you. Let's tear down this house of cards. Let's start holding people accountable. Because if you don't, who will? Catch you soon.